Hey everyone, welcome back to the Gray Matters podcast. My name is Josh Perry.
And my name is Jackie Lauricella.
And today we're going to be speaking about the mindset behind high performance athletes.
Like high intensity athletes.
High intensity athletes.
Yeah, high intensity sport athletes, because high performance athletes could mean anything.
This is true. High intensity, high performance athletes.
Yes.
You want to kick it off?
Yeah, for sure. So when I think we could define high intensity first, and I come from a background of martial arts and more specifically Tae Kwon Do, and Josh comes from a background of freestyle BMX. And when I think of a high intensity sport, I think of something that's full contact. I think of action sports. I think of full contact martial arts, things like that. Is there anything like, I think of rugby, I think of football, I think of lacrosse, I think of skateboarding, I think of, MMA, things like that.
What about basketball?
I don't know, because see, that's where
baseball.
Basketball or baseball is where I hear like high performance, and I'm like, yes, absolutely, but it's not a full contact sport. Like
football, hockey, taekwondo, BMX,
like things where
there's more risk involved.
Yeah, and you're just like, you're allowed to hit people. Like there's a sense of like combat or
hit the ground.
Yeah, exactly, or like a very obviously known risk that like you could really seriously injure yourself like at any given moment.
Yeah, I agree. A good way to define it then.
Yeah, absolutely. Because while things like baseball and basketball, yes, something like bad can happen to you. Like it's not very common.
Their intensity
and
training and sport is high, but
right.
I think the way we're trying to define it, high intensity is
it's like extreme sports,
versus,
contact and extreme sports almost.
Yeah, for sure.
So maybe we should call the episode Mindset of an Extreme Sport Athlete.
Yeah, I feel like extremes played out, but
whatever. So I'm an athletic trainer, which is somebody who directly works with sports and athletics, and at every level I've kind of seen these sports, and I always wonder, do these athletes get as intense, or like do they have the kind of same adrenaline flow as someone who is doing an extreme or high intensity sport, and how that works in their head? Because perspective is everything, and you see football players and basketball players getting all like jacked up in the locker room and getting all intense and into it and everything, but I'm like, I wonder if they're actually like a little bit afraid, or if they're just nervous. Because I knew I was always like a little bit afraid, but I think it was healthy. It was like a healthy fear. So as a freestyle BMX athlete, like, did you have a routine to like get you in the zone? Like, did you have a mental routine or a physical routine that you would go through the day before, the morning before, or anything like that?
I don't think it'd be anything like, how would I answer this? I feel like, it's just a lot of like practice, repetition, and visualization. So, leading up to the event on the qualifying or the semifinals or the finals, whatever day it is, you practice at home, but then obviously at the park or at the contest, it's a new park, it's a new layout, new ramps, new setup. So you're practicing and going through your runs, and then you're thinking about it. And for me, I would look at the design or the photo of the setup at night and in the morning, and just like visually plan out my run and go through it, and then, practice it in sections during practice. And then it was just routine. Other than that, there was just, just try and chill, eat good food, stay hydrated, rest, try not to think about it too much, stress yourself out. But the fear aspect you talked about, I mean, like when you're at a professional level of anything, but especially like BMX or, a competitive physical sport, at the highest level, there's definitely a sense of fear. I mean, and speaking from my perspective, when I was playing baseball and basketball, there was always like a nervous fear. It wasn't like a fear of like, damn, like if I mess up, like I may get fucked up. Like, but BMX or, X Games and Do Tour, like that, the elite level and fees, like
right.
You're about to do some tricks maybe you haven't even done in practice yet. you've been practicing at home in the foam or on the resi once or twice maybe, and you're like, this is time to do it, like you want to get done. And so you're mentally preparing yourself to go through your runs that you're practicing and visualizing, but then that fear of like, man, like some of these tricks, like I've done tricks at contests that I've never even tried outside the foam pit. I just needed that right time and right energy to send it, and that's when you lay it all down, so there's always that sense of fear because you could physically get hurt, and any sport you can, but to the level of getting kicked in the face or having an arm snapped, or getting knocked out, or
falling 20 feet.
Which has happened. It's a little different than, oh man, what if I strike out, or what if I miss that shot at the buzzer and like people judge me,
or even like worst case scenario in baseball, like what if the ball like hits me in the face, like that's like not even, I don't know, like
having a 90-mile-an-hour fastball to face.
That's I would not want that. So it's like, my question is, and I would love to hear like people's feedback on this, is like how that differentiates, because going into fight day, like, I had my routine, but it was mostly like to keep me calm. So like my routine was, like I'd weigh in as soon as possible. Weigh-ins usually started at 3 p.m. on the day before. And I took a very like one thing at a time approach. So up until weigh-ins, I was only focused on weigh-ins. My only job was to like make weight and make sure I stayed healthy.
So you think that took the pressure off of you of like the fight itself?
Oh, for sure.
At that time leading up to it?
Yeah. Like if all I thought about was like, who am I going to fight? Like, what's my bracket going to look like? Let me do this. Like, of course we did scouting. We watched videos and things like that. But that was like mostly my coach would worry about that. I would know what I was doing and I would take notes, but like I was like, I'm gonna train, I'm gonna be healthy, I'm gonna be in the best shape, and I'm gonna make weight. And that was like my thing. And then after I weighed in, it was like, now I'm focused on feeding myself. Like, and I'm very hungry, I'm very thirsty. And then the morning of the event, I usually couldn't eat, so I was like practicing intermittent fasting without even knowing it.
The same way. The nerves, I
couldn't eat. Like I couldn't stomach anything, and if I did, I would like throw up before I fought. Or weirdly enough, I enjoyed Fruit Loops the morning of competition if I knew I wasn't going to fight until later that night. So it was like Fruit Loops were like good. But it was to the point where I had specific underwear that I would wear and specific sports bra
I guess
that
I did have
wear.
Specific boxers and jeans I'd always compete in. I do that now with speaking. I have specific jeans I wear only for speaking that I bought.
I called them my fighting draws.
Yeah. You said something too though that actually reminded me of something, and this is just like something about loving the journey and letting go of the goal but focusing on the work, because you said you only focused on the weigh-in. Yeah. Your coach would do a lot of the research on the competitor. And that was something similar to me, that as I started going through the years of competition, I was always, at the beginning, I was always waiting for that course layout to come out.
Yeah.
And then as experience kicked in over the years of realizing my plan for that course and what I practiced at home never really worked out 100% because the ramps were so different than the drawing. You couldn't really tell the exact pitch of the ramp, the transition, the height, and the setup, and how far it was, or it wasn't even done. They had to make changes. So I got to the point where I just would focus on the tricks that I wanted to do and that I knew I could do, and then some that I had iffy goals about. And now this is what I do with Jaka. And those that don't know, Jaka is a 14-year-old from Slovenia that rides BMX that I've been coaching for about over a year now. But I tell him, like, we're going to focus on getting really well-rounded at home, but focusing on the tricks that we know we're good at and we want to get better at and set new goals, and then just focus on that. And then we get to the park, you see the setup, you see what you got to do, and it allows you to put that work in and focus on that rather than like...
Your mind is like more open to different possibilities than like rigid with a plan. And I think we like...
Because the plans never stay solid. Like,
no,
the plan is a plan, as a guide, but it's never end all be all.
Because you'll find like even with fighting, like, okay, I'm ready for this girl. Like, I've watched fight videos of her, probably going to draw her in semis or in quarters, whatever. And then you get it. And then she's been doing the same research. So she's not doing what she normally does because she's fighting in a way that's like less effective for you. So you can only do so much planning, because if other people are planning too and other people are training and other people are smart, then it's not going to work out. But I think when you're stepping into an event like that, I think fear is almost the wrong word, because yes, there was like fear and nerves and anxiety and excitement and all this stuff bundled up. But I think that there was just, at least for me, there was like a respect, like an understanding that at any point I could get knocked out, something could get broken. Like I understood that this girl across from me probably wanted to like kick me square in the face. Like I was like aware of those things. There was like a respect for the art and a respect for the danger that that other person kind of brought into the ring. But at the same time, you can't be afraid. So I think fear was the wrong word, because like there can be no doubt in your mind that like you're going to go out there and not get knocked out, even though that there's a very real possibility. Like you respect it, you understand it, but at the same time you're like, I'm not going to get knocked out. That's not going to happen to me. So it almost has to have like this really weird mindset where it's like, yes, I understand and I respect and I like am prepared for these things to happen, but also that could never happen to me, because you have to think that way in order to get through it, or else you're just like, oh shit, and you're paralyzed by it.
Well, I still think it's fear. I think it's just auditing how you want to use fear.
Right.
It's a sense of respect of what you're doing and the risk, but it's also a fear for the unknown and what you don't want to happen. And so therefore you make a decision to what you want to focus on. And so I would never have got to the level I got, any level of riding, had I given into fear in the wrong way and let it, hinder my efforts. But that's something I learned from a young age, is you push past it for the desire that you have.
Right.
Same thing with fighting. Like you're afraid of getting knocked out by the opponent, but you use that to, what do I focus on then?
Yeah.
What do I do? So I think it's just, like I say, like fear is a thought, and if we can change those thoughts and move forward to what we want, we can use it and leverage.
Yeah, and it comes in as fear, and then it goes out and it gets transformed into something completely different.
Just energy.
Yeah, because there were very real moments during fights sometimes where I was fighting someone that was very experienced and very talented, and I wasn't afraid. And then like she hit me hard, or like hit me like square in the face, and I wasn't ready. And then it was like, I'm like, this could go bad. And like kind of thinking like that, and then having to like snap out of it and be like, no.
Like it got you alert?
Yes. Like, because you're already alert and you're already aware, but then all of a sudden they catch you with something that you're not anticipating. And, or like they hit you with a kick or whatever, and it's like, fuck, that really hurt. And like but it can only last a second, because I think that makes the difference between like champions and people that do okay, is the ability to not focus on things like that. Because like one thing can go,
any aspect of life is people that dwell on the undesirable outcome versus the desirable outcome. It's like Jim Carrey said, like fear is inevitable, but we get to pick how big of a role it plays in our lives.
Yeah. But if you think about it, like in baseball, you go up to bat or whatever, and you strike out, and it's from mistakes that you've made, or you're like, man, this pitcher is like really good. Like wasn't expecting him to be really good. And then you go sit down and you dwell on it, or you think about it or whatever. And some guys can just like push that off right away. But in more extreme sports or more high intensity sports, you don't have time to dwell on it. Like, because the clock doesn't stop.
Yes, it's on a one at bat. You get, for us, it was 60 seconds.
Right.
Twice, or
and we have 3 2-minute rounds.
Yeah.
So you might have 30 to 60 seconds to think about it during one of the breaks, but after that, it's like you don't want to think about it that long. You don't want to pause and think about it. Like that's supposed to be like out of your head, almost like the whole one thing at a time mentality. You almost have to take rounds like that and fights like that. So it's like one round at a time. Like I'm not going to think about what happened in the last round unless I need, like I learn from it, I move on. Whatever happened in the last round has nothing to do with what's going on right now.
You got 2 runs, and if you mess up one, and you get another one. So if you focus on what happened, or focus on what just happened that you didn't like, and rather than like, all right, what can I do differently?
Like, oh shit, I kind of slipped pedal. I missed what I wanted to do. Like,
or even in the middle of a run, you slip pedal. Like
exactly.
You gotta focus on what's next.
Yeah.
There's no time to dwell on the errors. It's just move forward.
Oh man, come on, and like try again. I think that's like a big separator, and because it also doesn't mean getting knocked out or staying conscious either for a lot of sports. Like if I sit there and I dwell on like, oh, she kicked me really hard, like that could go really bad really quick. Or if you focus on like, oh man, I slipped a pedal and now I'm trying to do something else where I'm upside down and backwards, like it doesn't make sense. Like your head's not in it anymore, and that's when like shit gets dangerous.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a big misunderstanding, because it's not just like about a win or a loss at that point. It's honestly about your safety. And I think that that's where you have to have a special mindset in those kinds of sports. I always say that like the athletes that I work with, the martial artists and the BMX athletes are always the craziest. Like there's always something a little off. Like they're not like, I don't know. There's just always something a little different about those athletes.
To accept what you're about to go through to get to that level. Like if you're just like doing it as a hobby, it's different. But
right.
To do it at the level we've done it at, you have to accept a sense of pain mentally and physically.
Right.
That most people aren't willing to experience in a lifetime combined. And we're willing to experience it on a daily basis. And I really enjoy it because thinking about it as a outside of a sports perspective, we talked about this earlier, like the discipline and the sacrifice and the work and effort that went into doing something that you knew some sort of pain was inevitable, but to apply that to other areas of life, it was like, I keep mentioning this lately, but that episode with Joe Rogan and Aubrey Marcus talking about creating your own struggle, like for you to do that voluntarily, and then anything else like in life, whether it's, you know, failing a test or getting fired or not picking up a client or being broke, like nothing will hurt as much for me as falling 15 feet to the ground or higher, or slamming into the ground coming up from however high in the sky going fast.
Right.
And for you, you know, someone punching you or kicking you, you know, to any part of your body, like no sense of quote unquote failure in relationships or business or school or anything like that is going to hurt as much, other than the mental aspect. And that's where we can get caught up in. I see so many people, and I've been there myself, I know you have, but mentally we get caught up in the story of the quote unquote failure or hardship, and we create the pain, we create the suffering. And it's like that quote in Buddha's book, what was it about? The
Buddha's Brain book.
Or Buddha's Brain book. Something about pain. It was about pain and suffering. Like pain, suffering is a choice. Like pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice. Something like that. And it's like we can't avoid pain, but suffering, we do that to ourselves.
Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So you can choose to dwell on it, or you can just like experience it and then keep going. And that's how powerful our thoughts are. Yeah, there's a lot that you do in martial arts to get people to an elite level. And I'm not a coach anymore. I haven't been for 6 years now, which is kind of crazy. But like you condition kids and you condition teenagers to be able to take a hit and not think twice about it. So like, yeah, you see a lot of martial arts stuff and they're like kicking paddles or kicking heavy bags and stuff like that. That's not really what happens. Like, of course that happens sometimes, but a lot of times it's just you and a partner and you both have a chest protector on and you're doing the drills on each other. And we would get yelled at all the time for kicking too soft on our partners. And it was like, you're not trying to break anybody in half, but you're trying to move in a way that's like similar to fighting, and it's realistic, and you're at least like giving somebody a good little pop. Like you're making them like think twice about it. Yeah. And we did that. This drill was a little mean. I don't know if people do this anymore, but we would do this drill where we would have on our hogus, which are our chest protectors, and we would get on our hands and knees and line up in a row, like half of us would, and the other half would stand up and stand in front of you, and then just quickly like kick you in your stomach 3 times, and then like jog and move to the next person and kick them in their stomach 3 times and jog and move to the next person. And it was like just a row of people, just you're on your hands and knees and they're just kicking you and you're just taking it. And they could be nice or they could be rude, like, and you just had to sit there and take it. But then the best part was you got to like get in line next and like do the same thing. So it was like, there's there's a way you train people to get them not to think twice about getting kicked or making a mistake or feeling that pain. And I think that translates to a lot of real life stuff. It teaches you just to not feel pain is just like, what is Ronda Rousey's quote? It's like, pain is just one piece of information.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to take it as like, oh, this is bad. Like it could just be like, yep, it's just pain. My body does not like getting kicked in the stomach repeatedly. Yeah, no duh. But is it going to kill you? No.
Yeah, it's just about redirecting your focus.
Right.
That's interesting.
My next question was, because that was a good little tangent about our mental routine and kind of like sport specific conditioning as to what it does now in our life. But how did you feel while you were riding? Like, what was your thought process during your run while you were riding? Like, how did you feel physically and mentally? Not just practice, just like
nothing during the run. I didn't feel anything. I was just in that flow state that just 100% laser focus what I'm doing, and just that's it.
Yeah.
Didn't hear the music, didn't see or hear the crowd, didn't see it. It's locked in, and it was go time. Nervous and everything up until my name got called and my song starts, and then once you commit internally to dropping in and starting your run, everything's just gone, and you're in it.
Yeah. Oh.
It's a hard feeling to explain if you don't experience that or haven't experienced that.
I could like cry. Like I've never experienced anything. Like I've never experienced that feeling doing anything other than fighting.
Yeah, I think it's a similar experience when you have a sexual encounter with your partner. It's like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm in the moment. So it's like there's some aspects of life that are similar, and that's the only one I can think of right now.
Yeah. But I mean, like my adrenaline's not going as high. I'm not like laser focused. I'm not like, I don't know. To me, it's different. Like I see where you're coming from, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I'm not thinking about it or anything. But like
your competition, because there's a huge risk factor of getting hurt and harmed. You're in a different area. Well, for me personally, for us, we're in a different area than some sexual encounters where there may be pain involved.
Right.
But that's not where we're at. But I think that's the only difference. But yeah, I don't think there's anything really to compare, because it's like a life or death experience. Like it's like a created life or death. It's like a perceived but real life stress. Yeah. Like a legit form of stress, and
legit fight or flight. Just
you have
going
to be
hard.
100% aware. Like adrenaline, cortisol are up, and I think that's what allows you to focus like that. Yeah. You know.
There's so many videos of me fighting where I'm like smiling, like I've got this big goofy grin on my face, and I never understood where it was coming from. It's like, I mean, I know I'm really happy when I fight, but I'm like, I'm down, 4 points or whatever, and I need to get my ass in gear, and I'm still like grinning and like bopping around or whatever. But even winning and stuff, but then it would go in the blink of an eye. Like I'd be grinning, I'd be smiling, and the girl would like step wrong, and I would like take an opportunity and like kick her square in the face or just hit her like really solid to the body, and like I would instantly go from like smiling to like pure aggression back to smiling. Like it was just like the happiest thing. And I mean, it's that same experience, like flow state. You introduced me to that
Dave
term.
Asprey introduced me to that.
Yeah.
In 2017 in Chicago at his book tour, we did our live podcast for Bulletproof Radio, and I never heard about it before. And he quickly explained it, and I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I'd never learned about that.
No, and I think that's a really cool way to say it. That's what Mark
talks a lot about, is the flow state. It could be in writing, it could be in tech development, it could be surgery. Right. I wonder we got to get Dr. Friedman on the podcast sometime, because I wonder what...
These like 15-hour surgeries and stuff
what his mind goes through with operating on someone's brain. And
absolutely. And I mean, I think that's when you start to get unfocused, is when your thoughts start to intrude your flow state. That's when like things don't go the way you want them to. At least that was the way it was for me. Like I would always tune into my surroundings more if I was like losing. And like so it was like the outside world would start to like invade my little bubble, like in my happy space. Like I remember like couldn't hear my mom at all, then I would like later watch the fight tapes and I'd be like, Mom, you're screaming. Like, what is happening? And like, she's like yelling, like, go, Jackie, go. And like, when I would like be down a few points or whatever, I'd start to be able to hear her. And like, couldn't hear anything else, could hear my mom, like just yelling. Like, I would always be able to hear my coach, because in Taekwondo, you do have a coach that's on the sidelines and they're telling you to do things. And I would always kind of be in tune to what like he wanted me to do or what he was telling me. That was something that I focused on, and the referee and stuff. But like, as far as that in Taekwondo, or in other martial arts, they've probably heard about it too, but we've always called it's called mushin. And it's a Korean word for like muscle memory is the way it was translated to me. So the point is to get your body to just instantly know how to react without thinking about it. So everything that's happening is literally a reaction. Like, so when you're watching an MMA match or a Taekwondo fight or this or that or jujitsu, it's like everything is a reaction to something else that's happening. Like, I find it very odd when a person tells me like, oh yeah, I was thinking like, what if I set up like this? And what if I come in like this? And what if I do this? And it's just like, no, this feels good. Like, this is what I'm doing. This feels right. You know, so it's like you can have a rough plan in your head, but it's not something that you're actively thinking about in your brain while it's happening, which is super interesting. I never thought about a sexual experience being like a flow state, but that's really compelling.
Yeah.
I like sex more now. Look at that.
Brain health.
Right. Did you ever like have like a come down kind of feeling? Like you came down off of adrenaline or anything like that, like after events or contests?
I don't know, because it was almost similar to when you're like training hard at home for like that contest, like, you know, because we would do runs at home of the tricks to a degree, but it wouldn't be at like 100%, and it wouldn't be the crowd and the cameras and like it worth something more than just practice. But back then there was a lot of drinking involved those nights after, so
true,
I can't
like
really,
going out and partying.
I can't really put myself back in those shoes because I don't do that anymore. And that may have been a thing of what we were doing to relieve that emotion.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it was just a part of my life because it was just so long, and like this similar like adrenaline. Because like I wouldn't know for like Taekwondo, but like when you're training BMX, you're doing the same tricks on similar ramps at home. Like the same risk is there. The risk doesn't change. The only difference that changes is the crowd, the camera, and it matters to points and money that's on the line and things like that. But like your health is at just as high risk when you're home. Yeah. And I would imagine with Taekwondo, it's a little less because you're practicing.
Oh yeah, your training partner like, isn't trying to murder you every time you work out.
It's not like a fight where it's like it's go time. Yeah. But in BMX, the ramps still hurt the same at the contest as at home. That's very true. And you can still land on your head. So yeah, I think it's just, and that's what I'm really curious about now with all those years of the adrenaline rushes and, you know, the cortisol surges, like what that possibly does long term to brain health and overall health, and why I feel so good being almost 3 months off my bike right now and still training and traveling. But like the adrenaline and cortisol surges, like, I can't imagine would even be a tenth of what they normally are on a daily basis. Yeah. Because of even 1 hour sessions, you know, you're still, even though you get used to it, you're still like, you know, your brain knows what's going on. And
yeah, it knows that like some shit could happen at any minute.
And now I think about that stuff more often when I ride, now that I've gotten older and more aware of these things and more conscious of consciousness. Yeah. And the ability to flip and spin with 2 to 3 seconds at time and then land. So I think about these things more often when I'm on the deck riding and visualizing my tricks. And so yeah, it's interesting.
I think it's really interesting too, because like we would go out and party, especially if we were traveling internationally when drinking ages were lower and things like that. So we would always go out. But what I find really interesting about MMA athletes, about Taekwondo athletes, about BMX and extreme sports athletes is they all know how to play just as hard as they know how to work. Like they actually had a residency program for Taekwondo at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, but they got into so much trouble on a regular basis that they discontinued the program. So it was like those guys were partying. Like they were having a good time. And I think it's just those adrenaline seekers. It's those people that just like to feel like that. And I don't know about other people, but maybe it was the weight cuts I did, maybe. And for those of you who don't know, you see MMA fights and UFC fights and stuff, and people have one fight and it's crazy and it's like 15 to 25 minutes of just like beating the piss out of each other and stuff. But Tae Kwon Do, you're wearing gear and it's full contact and knockouts are legal and stuff, but there's like only punches to the body, but there's kicks to the head and the face. And it's a little bit different in that sense, but you can have anywhere from, like, depending on how big your division is, you can have up to 8 fights in a day, if not more,
That's
just
crazy.
Depending on how big your division is. Or sometimes you can have 4 fights or 3 fights or whatever, like however you're bracketed. So your body would be surprisingly sore the next day. Like you wouldn't even remember things and you would just be like, oh, man, my knee hurts. Like, why does my knee hurt? You know, or like my shoulder feels super weird, or like, God, I can't move my neck today. Like, what happened? And then you watch the tapes and it's like, oh shit, like she kicked me hard, like upside the head. Like I missed that. Like didn't even feel it in the moment. And I've had moments where like in the middle of a fight, I looked down and one of my fingers were sideways and I just like put it back without thinking about it. Like just little things.
My arm. When I had broken, hyperextended my elbow when I was 15. I was in shock though, so I pulled it back. But
yeah, that's a little bit more extreme than fingers.
Most logical
I think
decision at the time.
I think fingers are pretty simple to like just.
I feel like I'd rather not
like,
do that with a finger.
Really? I feel like I'd rather not do that with my arm.
I jabbed my thumb trying to catch a bar spin on the bar, and that hurt so bad I couldn't imagine like breaking a finger back in place.
Yeah, I've had a couple of them like sideways and just not where they're supposed to be, and I was just like, oh, look at that, and I just like put it back where it was supposed to go, like in the middle of a fight. But it's like, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, no,
like you're gonna leave it sideways.
But the adrenaline kicks in at that point.
You're not really feeling it. I mean, so it's
But I would for sure come down after an event though.
Well, it's interesting because I think about speaking now.
Yeah.
And leading up to the event, the day of is when the nerves start kicking in.
Right.
Still excited, but then getting behind stage, waiting for them to call my name, introduce me, like the adrenaline starts kicking in. You're like getting a little shaky, a little nervous.
Whole different level.
But
because
after, but then after that coming down feeling, I can relate in that aspect because it's like this build up.
Yeah.
And then same thing, they call your name, same thing with competition, it's just go time, you black out, you go in that flow state, you're doing your thing, and then after it's like this sense of relief and all this stress I feel come down.
Right.
And I feel like just come off of me.
Right. But I would almost be sad it was like over sometimes. Like I would be like, oh, there goes another one, you know, like, oh, what could I have done differently? Would I go back and do something different? And I would think about it. And I was definitely the type of person, whether I won, whether I lost, whether I tied, whatever it was, I would immediately watch my fight tape. Like immediately go back and review and go, what is this? What, and like analyze and talk to my coach.
That's the mindset you have to be in to progress, and like having that mindset carry over. And like you see what I do with, you know, even client calls or like anything. It's like, what could I have done better? Like that's what Kerwin talks about, like, you know, always striving to improve and to become the best version of yourself. You know, that's a sign of someone that's going to be successful.
Right. And I can't even imagine there being like cameras and crowds and all that on top of what I'm dealing with. Because I just worked USA Taekwondo Nationals for 7 days or whatever. And I was around all those people and I wasn't even competing. I was like covering them medically. And like there's adrenaline that goes with that because you're on your toes and you're watching 3 or 4 mats at a time and you're looking around and you're hoping like, oh, that's one of our Olympians. Hope he doesn't murder anybody today. Like, you know, like things like that. Like, so you're on edge for sure, but it's nowhere near the same. And I had to go back to the hotel and kind of just like be alone after all those days. But there was a lot of people there. So I think like just being around thousands of people as a whole, like it wears me out. It drains me a little bit. So I think
it's a lot of energy going through.
And I never really had the like self-awareness to understand that probably wore me out a lot when I was younger. Like I just thought, I was like, oh, I just competed and fought and it makes total sense. But being around that kind of energy and that many people and so many people feeling so high strung, like like you absorb that whether you want to or not sometimes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And us being empathetic, it's a little bit clearer to see that as well.
So as far as a relationship, like, I would love to hear back, like, find us on Instagram, like, leave comments, like, tell us how you feel as a traditional sport athlete comparatively to an extreme or high intensity sport athlete, and let us know if you feel any of these things, because, you know, perspective is everything. So, like, what one person might find painful or uncomfortable or bad, like, another person might be like, oh, that's fucking Tuesday. You're for me. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that doesn't take away from anything that person actually felt.
The emotional feeling that we all experience is similar and different in each way. So, yeah, we'd love to hear what the mindset behind any type of athlete is. So definitely reach out to us on Instagram at JCIAKE and at Josh Perry BMX, or leave a comment on here, whatever platform you're listening. And just let us know, like, what mindset do you have with going into any kind of competition, or even outside of sports? You know, what is the mindset behind doing something at, you know, the most elite level possible that you can achieve, whether you're starting out or you're a seasoned veteran? Just what is the mindset? We're really interested in mindsets and perspectives with any walk of life, but specifically for us being professional and or former professional athletes, you know, we're really interested in that. So we'd love to hear from you, and we appreciate you guys listening. And if you got other ideas for us, we got a bunch of ideas that we're going to be talking about coming forward. But if there's anything that interests you specifically about either one of us together, anything that we've talked about, or just anything in general that you're curious about, let us know.
Hit us up.
Yeah, hit us up.
We love it.
But yeah, if you've made it this far, we appreciate you. Appreciate your time. We know it's the most valuable thing in life. And so we want to say thank you for listening. And this is the Great Matters Podcast. And I'm Josh Perry.
And I'm Jackie Lorsa.
And we'll catch you in the next episode.
Signing out.